tell me a little bit more about Salomon Schonfeld. We did talk about him a little bit in the previous interview, but what kind of person he was, and
I think he was a maverick. He was a Scarlet Pimpernel.
mm-hmm.
On top of being actually primarily an ultra-Orthodox rabbi.
Mm-hmm.
Ultra-Orthodox. But you would never know, being with him, looking at him, seeing him, and knowing what he did and what he does.
Mm-hmm.
He was totally extraordinary man, and I will show you what he looked like. I will bring here I have such an archive about him. You can read some articles if you like about him, but I'd like to have them back.
Of course.
He was what he called himself, one of God's Cossacks.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he called himself, because people, and consequently, he was, what can I say, not to, he had a lot of enemies. Enemies in a small, written with a small e.
Mm-hmm.
Not, anything, but because people could not somehow bring together his personality, which was so amazing. His charisma, his looks, everything together, and on top of being an ultra-Orthodox rabbi. An ultra-Orthodox rabbi is not what he looked like, what he was.
Mm-hmm.
But he was. He was. And he built schools. His father put up grammar schools, secondary schools here, etc., Jewish schools. And he was the president of these schools, and we had professors, we had teachers who were Oxford dons and so on. I mean, they were outstanding schools. And until today, they always, when you have a list of Oxbridge and this and that, that, from those schools, this is on the top, on the very top. So, and he was a charming, very charming person, on top of everything else. And I was very fortunate because somehow or other he took a great liking to me, and we all adored him. But I was fortunate because I was closer to him than some of the other children because of the way because of the communicating skills. I mean, they could not communicate with him, he couldn't communicate with them. He didn't speak the language, and they certainly didn't speak English. Neither did I.
Yes, so
but I spoke German. And so I was the sort of go-between between them, or rather him and them. And from then on, he sent me to school immediately. I was privileged, very privileged for him.
The school you were sent to here, was that one of the schools that his father...
Yeah, his school, absolutely. And a very excellent school it was, indeed, and it is. But it was, and still is, a school, a Jewish school to begin with, and of course based on orthodoxy, And in those days, they were mostly boys, but there were a few girls. Today we have a girls' school and boys' school and so on, separate. And to me, this was a totally alien thing. I was not brought up on orthodoxy, as you know.
Yes.
And it was totally alien all these things, but there I was, and I had to, of course, comply, certainly. But I can't say that I was very happy with it, but it wasn't bad. I was treated very, very well. I had always a little bit of luck because the master, I mean, to begin with, there were a few of us
From the transport.
from the transport, just a few of us. And so we were looked upon as something from another planet. These children of our age, they had never seen, they had never heard, they never knew what it was to be in the war over there. They maybe remembered something of the war here, but certainly it was. So we were like something a little bit extraordinary. But the masters were very interested. Some of the masters, anyway. And so, because I had a certain, ability to learn a language maybe quicker than some others, I could confer with them. I could sit. I could answer some questions. From the beginning, it wasn't very difficult for me. It was not difficult for me. And one of the masters was actually from Germany, and so he loved the thing that I spoke German. So he loved to talk German with me. The Germans are very much that way in crying. Deutschland, Deutschland über alles. So no matter whether he's Jewish or he's German. And so I had great privileges there because he was the housemaster in the boarding school. So he would allow me to go out, whereas others not necessarily. So I could go to my people, to Stamford Hill, to the club, the Polish Ex-Combatants Association Club, and be with my people. He allowed me that. Of course, that made me come back a little later than normally, but he allowed that. On top of that, we did quite a lot of singing, and I loved to sing and so on. And he had a very, very, very good voice. And one of the masters would accompany him on the piano, and he would sing arias from operas and so forth. And then one day he said, "Lili, I'm going to ask you to come down when everybody is, we had to be in bed by 8 o'clock or something. You'll come down to the master's room, and we're going to sing duets." It was wonderful. And he really taught me. He was the first one to teach me some duets from operas. We sang from Mozart, we sang from Rossini, we sang some very nice, very beautiful. I loved that. It was great. And he was very nice to me. So I was, as I say, I always had a little bit of luck. I really had, to people, to the surroundings, and to the masters, and particularly to him. And that was because he was very, 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 what should I say, Germanic in some ways, and the children were very frightened. I mean, when he said something, God Almighty,
Strict.
Yeah. But I did not have to worry. I didn't have to fear. I didn't have to worry. I didn't do anything untoward, but
So he had a
it was
soft
fine.
spot for you.
Yes. He was always very nice to me and all that sort of thing and so forth. Today it may perhaps not have been allowed. But in those days it was a normal thing. He would take me by the hand, he would, and it was very, very good from that point of view because I could have a little more, and not only for myself, because being that he would be kinder to me than normally, I could do some things for others. Which, so they would always come and ask me, "Lili, can't you ask Mr. Maya? I would very much like to." So whatever I knew that is not such an outrageous something, I asked, and because I asked, he allowed. So my girlfriend could also go out with me after a while. Yes, it was like that. You know how it is. Like in life, it's not what you know; it's who you know. So it's unfortunately that's how it is. It's very sad that it's like that, but sometimes if it's innocent, then it helps.
Did you talk about your wartime experiences with other friends at school or teachers, or was it something that you didn't want to?
Not with the children, not with my school colleagues or friends and so on, because they wouldn't understand. But the parents were very interested. And the parents would invite me, before my mother came, would invite me on a Shabbat, or not Shabbat, no, because one couldn't drive or anything. One couldn't use the transport, but on a Sunday, on a weekend, Sunday, they would invite me for tea home and wanted to know things, wanted to hear things. And they were very helpful to me to bring my mother over.
Yes, tell me how it was that period, because it was over a year before your mom came over.
A
It must
year
have been
and 2
very
months.
hard.
A year and 2 months, yes.
Must have been very hard for you, because that was the
Of
first
course
time
it
you were
was. It
apart.
wasn't
Really.
that it was hard for me. It was hard because I knew she's on her own there.
Yeah.
That was the hardship. Not because I had it good. I had everything. I had absolutely everything. Here, the photograph there behind you, that's from my school. I was looked after. I had a school. I was dressed. I had what to eat. Everything was fine, but I worried terribly about my mother being on her own. You know what it was like in Poland? You don't, but what it was like just after the war was terrible.
Were you in regular contact with her, like
Of
letters?
course, yes.
Letters?
Letters, yes. Only by letters. Only by letters.
Where did you live at that time? Was it
in Krakow?
No. I mean, when you were already
on top
in London.
of Hampstead Heath. On top of Hampstead Heath.
But were you at was the school a boarding school? Okay, so that's where you were staying. What was
we
the...
bordered not where the school was. The boarding house was elsewhere. And the school was elsewhere. But the underground station was Hampstead, top of the heath. And it was a fabulous place. We were right on top of the heath, the whole of London underneath. The boarding house. And the school was in Hendon. So we went every day to school.
So tell me the story about bringing your mother over. How did you manage to...
I managed, that's all I did. I can't tell you how. By speaking, by asking, by begging. By begging the school, Dr. Schoenfeld, constantly. And he promised that he will do whatever he can for me and for my mother. And he tried, and the school and some people, some of the parents of my schoolmates. But actually it was the secretary of the school, Mr. Katzenberg, and his wife, who were mostly connected to this whole project, and Dr. Schoenfeld, of course. And they did it on the basis of bringing her over as a domestic for the school, because there was a shortage of staff. Cleaners doing cooks. There was a shortage, as always. I mean, English people, as you know, until today, they don't like to do this sort of work. So, on this basis, they decided that they're going to try, and they managed to get her a permit. It wasn't easy. She got a permit as a domestic, permit number 1, I remember, as a domestic, and the visa and everything was arranged for her. And this is what brought her over.
And after that, oh no, first, before after that, tell me that story, quite actually heartbreaking story, when you were not allowed to go and meet her at the station when she
No,
came.
because precisely because we arrived on a Shabbat, on Saturday, and they wouldn't allow me to go to the station. And I said, what do you mean? My mother is coming and I'm not going to meet her? That kind of, so they locked me in. I couldn't get out.
And she
It
came.
was terrible, and she came, she arrived. And it wasn't like, we didn't have,
Mobile phones.
mobile phones or this or that. She arrived and she stood there with one suitcase. I think she had one suitcase, she had £5 in her pocket and a sewing machine. Because our sort of spiritual father, so to speak, in Poland was a rabbi, a man with whom we were hidden by Metropolitan Szeptycki, was Dr. Kahane. And when I left, my mother spent a lot of time with them at their, as a guest of theirs. And he arranged on the other side everything for her, like he arranged for me to be put on the list, because otherwise. And he told her that you're going to totally strange, new land, new language, new everything. What are you going to do? How are you going to keep yourself? You have a profession. You can do things. You can do wonders with your hands, but that's not enough. You need to have
The tool.
something. Yes, a tool. You've got to take the machine, and he somehow or other managed to get a permit that she can bring a sewing machine. And there she was at the station with a suitcase, a sewing machine, and £5 in her pocket, and nobody there to meet her.
And she didn't speak any English.
No. She understood, because before the war, I remember they had English lessons before the war at home. My father, my mother, and some friends had English lessons. Why, I don't know, but that's how it was. So it wasn't totally, she could understand, but she couldn't speak. And she stood there and waited and waited and waited, and nobody came, and eventually, terrible. And one of the porters, in those days there were still porters in the stations, not like today, came up to her and said, "Can I help you? Maybe I can assist you in some way." So she said, school, she gave him address and everything. And I need to go. So he said, all right, I'll take you to a taxi, I'll put you in a taxi. And I tell the driver where to take you. And she arrived, and it was absolutely terrible for me, terrible, because it never happened. We were not that way inclined, that somebody's going somewhere and we're not going to put them on the train or on the bus or something. Until the end of our lives, that's how it was. Suddenly, there it is, she arrives and there's nobody there. I was in such a state, and I created, and I said, I want to speak to Dr. Schoenfeld, I want to get out of here, I don't believe in all your religion, in all these things. Yes, because I said, what sort of hypocrisy is this? You don't allow me to go and welcome my mother to a foreign land, but she is allowed to come by taxi. So you tell me, where is the logic in that? And where is your religion in that?
What did they say?
Nothing. I said, I want to speak to Dr. Schoenfeld about it. And of course I did. No, he didn't have it easy with me. he did not have it easy with me, absolutely not, because I rebelled about a number of things. I rebelled when we were coming down every single morning. We had to get up at 6 o'clock and prayers before breakfast, because afterwards we have to breakfast and go to school. The school
Yes.
was not on the premises. And prayers were in Hebrew. And you had a Bible, you read it in Hebrew. So after a while, I was reading like everybody else. And I suddenly realized what am I reading here? What am I praying for? And I realized that it says in Hebrew, "Thank you, dear Lord, for having created me a man."
Oh.
So when I read that, before we were repeating like parrots, repeating things. I had no idea what I was saying, praying. But when I realized what I'm saying, I said, "Excuse me." I put the thing down and walked out. Yes. And of course it was a whole thing. And Dr. Schoenfeld had me, and I told him, "Dr. Schoenfeld, I am not a man. I am, if you like, a woman or a girl. I'm a girl. I'm a woman. Why should I stand here and get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and pray and thank the Lord that I'm a man? No." And as he was the way he was, he knew that he won't win this one. He said, "Lili, please behave. Please behave."
So you were a rebel.
I didn't go anymore.
Okay, but they let you get away with it. Okay.
I did not go anymore. I was not a man, because this is a prayer for men. Men go and pray. Women don't have to. But we were a few girls. Everybody had to go finish.
So your mom arrived at school, and was she then living at where you were?
For a while, yes,
Okay.
absolutely, yes. For a while, she was staying there. There's a photograph in the album, that's about a week after she arrived. That photograph.
So tell me, what was your life together after your mom came to London?
Wonderful. It was wonderful. From then on, I didn't worry about anything.
Yeah.
It was just wonderful. And as my mother was the way she was, she could do anything out of nothing. She could do something. Then she immediately had ladies who were very interested in her,
Just
doing
like
this and doing that, and she started working almost immediately. My mother was called the Golden Hands of my mother. Yeah. And she started. She was really not a burden on anyone.
But did she work as a domestic at school, or no? She didn't. So that was just an excuse to bring her over, and
Yeah, that was the only way to bring her over.
no, I just wasn't sure if she then had to work as a domestic.
No,
At least for the time
no,
being.
they
No.
would. They wouldn't have had her. No.
So your mom comes in 1947. 2 years later, you managed to bring Frau Witt over, and you're 19 then, and you go to you study.
Yeah,
In
I was
London.
studying. I finished school,
What did you study in London?
languages,
Languages.
and commercial studies, economics, languages.
Which university or college?
I was here at the French Institute because I went to Sorbonne during holidays. I went to Paris.
So how many languages were you able to speak at that point? Quite a long list.
Quite a few. Yeah.
So
I spoke quite a few languages, and I liked languages. I liked languages, and I belonged here to the Linguist Club, and I was also doing some courses there. I wanted to do simultaneous interpreting. This was my
calling.
aim. put it this way. But